It's time to bring you yet another amazing episode. And now, welcome your host.
Great to have you on the show. This is Ellwood by Omobola Stephen. On Ellwood by Omobola Stephen, we'll focus on personal development and self-improvement topics. We vocation thought leaders, professionals who are expertise, adept in the topics of personal development and self-improvement. My name is Omobola Stephen. I'm the host of Ellwood by Omobola Stephen. Now, we always emphasize the need for us as individuals to intentionally focus on personally developing ourselves. Now, all of the innate potentials and possibility that lies inside of us and waiting to be maximized can only happen when we intentionally begin to improve on ourselves. And I tell you, it's such a beauty, such a joy and fulfillment in finding out who we really are when we have come to realize the importance of personally developing ourselves, and also realizing the beautiful bounties that life has in store for us when we don't give up. Now, it is also very important to understand that personal development and self-improvement is a lifelong process. And so it's something that we must continually strive to improve upon. It's not something we have to give up upon in order for us to see our life transform, indeed, and also leading us to living a worthwhile and fulfilling life at the end of today. Thank you, Mark Ellwood, for joining me on the podcast Ellwood by Omobola Stephen. Now, Mark is a productivity expert and the president of Pace Productivity. He's also a professional trainer and expert facilitator. Good to have you on the show.
It was such an elegant and beautiful introduction.
I'm humbled by that. Great to have you once again, and looking forward to this worthwhile interview as we talk about a user-friendly device that you launched and how it is improving the productivity, especially in the workplace. And we also want to talk about time management, which is also very important, not just in the workplace, but in our personal lives. Now, you conduct corporate time studies and invented the TimeCorder. So, a user-friendly device that tracks time for organizations and employees. So the question is, why do you think this device is right on time?
Well, let me just tell you a quick story about the background of it first. So I was in a meeting many years ago, in a corporate meeting, and everybody was late. This always happens. People are late for meetings. And I looked around and thought, boy, if you add up your salary and his and hers and mine, and multiply it by the number of minutes we've been waiting, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of expense. I thought maybe we could track that, or maybe you could have a little device, or kind of like a chess clock, but in reverse. Instead of the time ticking down, you could add it up. You could have this, and you could track all kinds of activities. So that was the aha moment, the inspiration for the TimeCorder. And I developed different versions over the years. This is the current version. It's a small electronic device. And the way it works is every time you begin a different activity, you just press one button and it tracks how you spend your time. And people are thinking, oh, but I've got an app to do that. Well, the device is better than an app for a whole bunch of reasons. It's always ticking. It gives you feedback. It's tracking the things you do on your smartphone and others. And so originally I tried selling the devices. I pivoted, I shifted. And so I lend those out to employees in organizations. They use them to track their time for 2 weeks. And then I analyze the results and show organizations how their employees can get an extra hour per day for their top priority activities. So that's the background.
All right. Now, because of the tremendous technology changes that is happening in recent times, have you ever tried to review this user-friendly device?
That's right. Have I said again?
Yes. Has there been any review in recent times because of the technology changes that happens in the world with your device?
Well, if you get it right, good technology doesn't need an upgrade. If you look around your house, there's a lot of things that haven't changed. Doorknobs and toilets and doorbells and all kinds of things. So if you get it right, you don't have to have different versions. We got the formula right. The TimeCorder is just a little less complicated to use than a doorbell. It gives you audio, visual, and tactile feedback. So I've had a couple of versions, but this one is not that new, but it works. And so when we lend it out to employees, we get this amazing participation rate of 94%. If you give employees a survey to fill out, you're not going to get those kind of numbers. But it's fun, it's easy. So I've avoided other kinds of improvements because it really does work well and people like using it. The hurdle that I face is that companies go, oh, our people they're not going to want to do that. Well, they do want to do it, and that's where I thrive. So it's a bit of a tough sell, but when people track their time, they like doing it.
Right. I love the resilient spirit. And now let's talk on your 34 years of scientific research and data about time use difference. So I need you to tell me, what are the findings and what do you think this is more relevant in today's time management, especially in the workplace?
Well, from the beginning, as I did these corporate time studies, I thought, well, I'll amass them all in a large database where I can compare one client to the other and so on. So recently, I decided to look at men versus women. Now, we know a lot about women, certainly in Western countries where women are more responsible for childcare and domestic activities and shopping and cleaning and so on. And that's quite well known. I go to conferences and we talk about that all the time. So I thought, well, what about the workplace? And people who do this kind of time use research, they don't tend to focus on the workplace, but I do. So I thought, all right, well, let's look at men versus women. So I took the entire database of hundreds of thousands of hours of data that people had gathered, and I split it in two. So Mary and Suzanne and Omobola, they were all in one group, and Jim and Harold and Marvin, they were in another group, the men versus the women. And so I started to look at the differences. And what I discovered is women are better at managing their time than men. And that was based on 4 major findings. The first finding was that women actually work fewer hours than men. Now, I'm looking at knowledge workers, not frontline production people, not very much retail, not driving trucks and that sort of thing. So knowledge worker, people doing managing and sales and service and office jobs. And so the average is about 46 hours per week. Now, that includes some personal time as well, because you're in the office, you've got to take a break for lunch or bathroom break or whatever, and that's about 3 or 4 hours. But the total's around 46 hours for knowledge workers. Men are at 48 hours and women are only at 45 hours. So to start with, they're working fewer hours than men. And the second major finding is quite profound. We looked at how much time they spend on their top priority activities. If you read time management books, they'll say focus on your top priority activities, but they don't tell you what those are. So when I do these time studies, I ask people in advance. I said, well, what are the most important things you should do in your job? And salespeople, for instance, they'll tell you that I need to be processing orders and servicing customers, but above all, they need to be prospecting and getting new sales. Okay, so that's that. I looked at 13 different job types, and I said, well, if that's what they tell us, is their time use matching with that? And so I went and looked at the data and found out that on average, for their top priority activities, employees spend about 20% of their time. That's all. The top performers get up to 30%, but 20% of their time on top priority activities. Women are at 22% and men are only at 18%. So women are spending more of their time on their top priority activities. That was quite insightful.
Excuse me, I appreciate that insight indeed. But how do you think these findings can begin to help the leadership of an organization?
Well, that 20% number, whether it's men or women, is quite profound. And so what's all the rest? Well, the rest is travel and internal meetings and administrative work and writing reports and so on and so forth. So what the organization should be doing is saying, how can we get that 20% up to 30% where the top performers are, or even more. Well, we do that by understanding where all the time goes and eliminating administrative activities. How can we cut those down so you can automate tasks, you can delegate, you can send them to offshore, you can eliminate them entirely. And that's the key, is to allow people to spend their time on their top priority activities and less on the lower priority ones. Organizations should also be doing some training. You know, people come into the workforce and it's kind of assumed you know how to plan your day, and you know how to run meetings, and you know how to send things by email. Well, not everybody does. And so if you could help people and train them on better time management, that would be good. Here's the catch. Organizations don't always care that much because they get free labor. If your employees are supposed to be working 40 hours and they work 50 hours because they want to get promoted, or they enjoy the work, or they want to earn more if they're on commission, well, the organization's getting that free labor, so they don't always care that much. But nonetheless, if they want people to focus on those top priority activities and avoid burnout and avoid stress and avoid employee turnover, then they should be helping their employees to focus on those high priority activities.
All right. Moving forward, it is important that we also talk about the glut of emails, as it also relates to our topic on productivity in the workplace. So are there any realistic ways to keep one's overflowing inbox under control?
Sure, you know, I do a little survey in my workshops, and I ask people, I say, you know, there's some bad drivers out there. What percentage of drivers are bad? And if you do a little survey like I do in any audience, typically you'll get 20%, 50, 80%, whatever, but typically the average is about 33%. So everybody out there thinks there's about 1/3 of drivers are bad. And then you say, or I say, would all the bad drivers please stand up? And one person does. So we attribute this bad behavior to others and not to ourselves. Okay, let's talk about email. Same thing. Everybody thinks somebody else is sending out all these horrible emails, but it's all of us. There's not some evil person down in the basement who every day sends out, I'm going to send out a lot of bad emails. It's all of us. So that's the first thing, is we all need to take responsibility and for the email communication we do. If you send out one email, but to 20 people, you've sent out 20 emails. You're contributing to the glut. And doing these time studies, we've actually asked people, how much time do you spend on unnecessary email? That's separate from the emails you're supposed to be doing, but the unnecessary stuff, how much does that add up to? It's incredible. It's 3.4 hours per week. We thought email was going to be the great savior and productivity improvement device, and it is. Email's good. I celebrate it, but it comes with some unexpected, unnecessary email, and that adds up. So we need to all take responsibility and recognize we're contributing to that 3.4 hours. So what do we do, to your question? Well, we got to write shorter emails. If you're telling a long story, last week I sent you this and you sent that back and I was worried, just stop it. Send a short email. Can you send me that file, please? Or pick up the phone and have a conversation. Also, you can't correct behavior on email. You can't tell somebody, you know, you're disappointed, they did a bad job, they need to fix their behavior. Doesn't work. So watch out for long stories, watch out for trying to correct behavior, keep your emails as short as possible, and don't send them to the entire world. Send them to the people that need to receive them. That's all.
All right. So how can we foster deep listening? How can
listen to each other a whole lot? We get into arguments with each other. We have a point of view, something we want to say. And I'm a huge fan of what I call deep listening. And so the way to do that is to just understand what the other person said. Instead of arguing back and forth with them, what you do is you say, oh, So you're telling me that you're concerned that we were overdue with this project. Yeah, I'm really concerned about that because now we're going to miss our client delivery times. Oh, so you're telling me that we're going to miss our client delivery times. Now that's regular listening, that's empathetic listening, and we should all do that. Then you go one level farther and you get into deep listening. And so deep listening is, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Oh, I see that's a concern. What ways is that a concern to you? It's just being curious. It's not hard to do. It's instead of trying to tell people what you want to tell them, it's just listening, telling them what they said, and then asking questions that probe for more depth. And when you probe for more depth, you find out what the real issue is. And the real issue in that case is the customer is going to get really mad. And maybe we missed our deliveries a couple of times. And that's what the person is concerned about. Oh, okay. So we need to solve the problem of customers getting upset about late deliveries. Let's focus on that. So deep listening is using those different techniques to understand what the core of the issue is.
Do you think that the glut of emails, do you think it can hinder our bosses from being good leaders?
Sure, there's different ways to communicate. We use the phone, we send a letter, we send an email, we send a text. I found, we keep inventing more and more ways to be out of touch with each other. So for me, it's phone and email. I don't like texting and WhatsApp and all kinds of different things. Keep the list fairly narrow. And as a leader, indeed, you're going to use email communication a lot. So you need to be very clear with it. You need to be precise in what you're asking for or what you're looking for. Sometimes you can be very brief. And if you're not using email, then use some other medium. Have a meeting, call someone on the phone, have a face-to-face conversation, because sometimes in those cases, you can get a lot more depth. You can do some of that deep listening that we talked about, whereas email is kind of one way back and forth. So I think it's worth using email, but we need to be very careful about it. Short emails, use email for the right reasons, attach things to emails if you must, but don't go on for long emails. That's a problem. If you find yourself rewriting the email and rewriting it, I got to say this the right way, then it's not the right medium to be using.
Thank you so much, Mark Ellwood, for sharing your perspective regarding this topic. We talk about efficiency and also we talk about productivity at work. Maybe both are intertwined, but how can an organization leadership begin to balance these two?
Efficiency is getting more things done, or productivity. There's different definitions of that. I mentioned earlier that maybe organizations don't care, but they should care. They should want their employees to be spending their time on their highest priority activities. So first, measure it. Second, set some objectives for what you want people to be doing. There's other things you can measure as well. Salespeople can measure the number of calls they make, or how long those calls are, what their closing ratio is. So the metrics should be in place so that you know what you're aiming for, and then you can put in place the systems to do that. And that's training, that's delegation, that's providing back office support for those employees so that they can spend their time on their highest priority activities and less time on the administrative tasks. That's my definition of productivity for knowledge workers.
All right, so how were you able to collect 500,000 hours of real-time data in a database? Excuse me. Let me rephrase my question, please. How were you able to collect 500,000 hours of real-time data in a database? And how do you think this can help business organization?
The employees collected it themselves. So again, we gave them a TimeCorder device and we said, track your time for 2 weeks with this, all your work hours. And so typically they're tracking 80, 90, 100 hours, somewhere in that kind of range for 2 weeks. And there's a 50 or 100 employees doing that. So if you got 100 employees, each tracking 100 hours, there's 10,000 hours just like that. Not all the projects are that big. So that's what I've done is I've gathered, thousands of employees who have tracked their time over the years, and I always keep it into my database so that I can do these projects. The value to the client is that when I can compare their results to other like organizations, then they can see how they compare. That's the thing, when you see statistics, maybe you read an article in the newspaper and says, 60% of people believe this, or 30% do that. It's like, well, so what? What does that compare to? You always want to compare your statistics, whatever you're measuring, to something else. How did my competitor do? How did I do versus last year? How does that compare to what I would like to be doing? You run a marathon. How does that compare to other people who run the marathon? How does it compare to your personal best, and so on? So by me keeping that data of, hundreds of different clients, I'm able to compare their results to each other and say, well, this is the standard for what a salesperson is doing, and you're below that. So that means you need to pick up some time and do better in terms of giving people the time they need to focus on sales. So that's how the database is really useful, because it gives me a benchmark to compare people's results to.
All right, but really, Mark, in terms of research work, there is always what we call the bias. Have you ever encountered bias in your research effort?
So that's the worry that a lot of clients think about, that there's going to be some bias. And I'll give you a little story. When I worked in sales, my boss came to work with me 1 day per month. And I can tell you that was the best day ever. It was a little bit biased because I wanted him to see my best clients and see my best work. Well, all right. But if you do that for 2 weeks, as we normally have people track their time, normalcy is going to kick in and regular patterns are going to kick in. So you reduce the bias by having a longer period of time for tracking. Sometimes in time studies where they ask people to fill out a diary, they only do it for a day or two. So we're going 2 weeks, so we're getting that. The other thing is we're capturing data from a large number of employees, not just one, but we get a whole large number. That helps with the anonymity, and it gives us a general sense of the patterns. So there might be some outliers here or there, but if you have a large enough sample size, which is what I'm doing, then those biases get reduced.
Absolutely. Mark, do you have any exciting news, any projects in the pipeline you think the audience are going to benefit from? Come on, you can share them if you have any.
Well, I'm starting to focus on meetings. Everybody talks about how much they hate meetings and how meetings are a real problem for them. So I've decided to really pursue that. It's kind of a subset of time management. Time management is an umbrella. It includes a bunch of things: goal setting, daily planning, emails, we talked about, running meetings, and so on. And I've decided I'm going to just focus on meeting management. So I'm positioning myself as the meeting master, and I'm going to hopefully educate the world and inspire people to have better meetings. The average length of time per meeting in my database, and this is for managers in corporations, is about 47 minutes. If I can get that down to 46 minutes or even better, then that would be great, because I don't want people going to badly run meetings. And here's the thing that I want to inspire people. If you go to a meeting and you walk away and go, that was horrible, that wasn't very good. Well, partly you can make a difference. I don't want to say it was your fault, but rather go to a meeting and know that you can make a difference. You can ask for the meeting to start on time. You can ask for there to be an agenda. You can ask for clarity on what decision was made, because maybe it's not quite clear. So I'm trying to inspire people to be better meeting attendees never mind running the meeting, just to show up at the meeting, and that inspire them to show that you indeed can make a difference. So you don't walk away going, that was a horrible meeting, but rather you walk away saying, hey, that was pretty good. So that's my next project.
All right, good to know that. And also include in, including also in your project, the importance of keeping to the appointment to your meeting, right? Because you have some clients who have scheduled a meeting, a time, an appointment, and somehow they just get to disappoint without any clear reason for that.
You want people to trust you, and they will trust you for what you did. Trust is kind of an emotion, it's a feeling, right? I trust you because you did a bunch of things and you've shown that you're good for what you said you would do. The easiest and fastest way to do that is just to show up on time. Oh, you were there on time for the meeting, so at least I know I can trust you for that. But if you're late for the first meeting we ever have, I think, oh, why was he late? And maybe I can let that go for some reason. But if that's consistent, then I can't trust you. So show people that you have integrity by showing up for your meetings on time. That's an easy way to build trust.
All right. We'll look forward to your social media handles if you have any on your website. So we connect with Mark Ellwood, learn more about you and what you've been up to lately. Can you share?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, but the fastest way is my website, getmoredone.com. Just like it sounds, getmoredone.com. And there's a contact page in there and you can email me. And if you do, then I'd be happy to send you no charge at all. One of my articles about how to put a priority on your time and my ABC list for how to plan your day. It's a really good article. So I'm happy to share that with people in your audience who want to improve their time management.
All right, good to know. Thank you once again. I'm Mark Ellwood, a productivity expert and president of Pace Productivity. You're also a professional trainer and expert facilitator. We really had a great time listening to this discussion. Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart and sincerely. On behalf of the audience, we wish you best of luck in these projects and the subsequent ones that you're embarking upon, Mark. All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of the show, you can do so on any cross-promotion platforms or any podcast distribution platforms you bump into online, and do have a great time. Remember to subscribe to Live by Omobola Stephen. Give a feedback, share a 5-star review if you may. We will be looking forward and also appreciate that. It's Live by Omobola once again. Thank you for joining me. Once again, Mark Ellwood, for contributing to the topic of discussion valuably and also for your time. Once again, we appreciate. Thank you once again. It's been Live by Omobola Stephen. Talk to you soon.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review.